Hello boys and girls of grade 5. Welcome to our mathematics class. My name is Miss Yulita Brown Phillips. I hope that you all have been staying safe and healthy and you are doing lots of revision. Today we will be looking at comparing fractions with unlike denominators. But before we get into that, I would like to do a little review on something that you will see popping up during this lesson. LCM. Have you ever heard the term LCM? What does LCM mean? LCM means lowest or least common multiples. To find the LCM of given numbers, you must first list the multiples. I do know that you remember the term multiples from one of our previous mathematics lessons. Now, out of the set of common multiples selected, the smallest is chosen as the LCM. To find the LCM of any given number, you must first multiply that number by 1, 2, 3, etc. Good. So boys and girls, we will do an example of finding the LCM of two numbers. I want you to pay keen attention. So the example is, what is the LCM of 4 and 8? What is the LCM of 4 and 8? Now remember we said that to find the LCM of given numbers, you have to list the multiples of these numbers. So we will begin by listing the multiples of the numbers. We will start by listing the multiples of 4 and then the multiples of 8. Then we will move to the next step. So let's begin to list the multiples of 4. The multiples of 4 are 4, 8, 12, 16, 20. Do you think you can list the multiples of 8? I'm going to give you a second to try to list the multiples of 8. So the multiples of 8 are 8, 16, 24, 32. Now boys and girls, these numbers, they have many more multiples. But it's advisable when we're doing activities like these, we list like 6 or 7. What are the common multiples? When we say common multiples, what are the multiples that you see that are multiples of 4 and they are also multiples of 8? Do you see any of those? Did you say 8 and 16, boys and girls? You are absolutely correct. So the common multiples of 4 and 8 are 8 and 16. Now, we want to find the LCM, which means the lowest or least common multiple. Of the two numbers, which number is the smallest? Good job! 8 is the smallest of the two common multiples. Now 8 is the LCM of 4 and 8. Quickly now, boys and girls, I want you to try one for yourself at home. What is the LCM of 3 and 6? What is the LCM of 3 and 6? Boys and girls, remember, you don't have to list all the multiples. You can list about 6 or 7 of the multiples of each of the numbers. So start by listing the multiples of 3, then the multiples of 6. I will give you a minute to do that. You should be finished by now, boys and girls. Let's see what you have. Let's list the multiples of 3. Do you have 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21? If you have that, you are absolutely correct, boys and girls. Good going. Let's move on to the multiples of 6. Do you have 6, 12, 18, 24, and 30? Yes, boys and girls, those are the multiples of 6. What is the next thing we said that we must do? Yes, we have to take out the common multiples from the list of numbers. Boys and girls, what multiples of 3 do you see reappearing as a multiple of 6? Look carefully and pick them out, boys and girls. So we have 6, 12, and 18. Good job, boys and girls. So what was the next step after we took out the common multiples? Yes, the next step is that we look at the numbers and see which one is the smallest of the group, and that becomes the LCM. So the smallest number there is 6. So therefore, the LCM of 3 and 6 is 6. Good job, boys and girls. I am extremely proud of you. So now we can move on to our topic for today, because you quite understand clearly how to find the LCM. So today we are further going to look at the steps to comparing fractions with unlike denominators. When you hear the word unlike, what comes to your mind, boys and girls? We know that unlike is the opposite of like. So it means that we are comparing fractions whose denominators are not the same. So I have some steps here to guide you. You know that when we're doing mathematics, mathematics is a process, and we do our work step by step so that we can come up with the correct answers. The first step, what does it say? Find the LCM of the denominators. A quick question, boys and girls. Do you remember which part of the fraction is the denominator? Yes, the number at the bottom represents the denominator. So in our first step, we have to find the LCM of the denominators in the fraction. Then the next step, we have to make the fractions like. The third step, we have to compare the like fractions. And the final step, you have to compare the original fractions. So boys and girls, let's move on to an example. I want you to pay keen attention because here is where you're going to understand what you have to do when we do examples. Now using more than or less than, compare the fraction below. 2/8 blank space 3/4. So we want to find out if 2/8 is more than 3/4 or if 2/8 is less than 3/4. So the first thing we have to do, remember a minute ago we talked about the steps to comparing fractions with unlike denominators. So our first step said find the LCM. What are we finding the LCM of? The denominators. What are the denominators in the fractions above? 8 and 4. So let's get right ahead and start listing our multiples of those two denominators. So the multiples of 8 are, boys and girls, remember I said previously we don't have to list all the multiples because we can go on to infinity. So you list just about 6 or 7. So the multiples of 8 are 8, 16, 24, 32. Let's list the multiples of 4. The multiples of 4 are 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, and 24. Boys and girls, do you realize that when you are listing these multiples, you can say your tables to list them? Yes, that is why it's very important that you learn your tables. They can make your work easier in mathematics. So our next step, we will list the common multiples. What are the multiples you see that are common in the numbers 4 and 8? We see 8. We see 16 and we see 24. Last step for the LCM. What do? We now have all these common multiples, but we only want the lowest common multiple. And the smallest number there would be 8. So the LCM of 8 and 4 is 8. So now we have to make our fractions like. Let's look at the fraction 2/8. What when multiplied by 8 will give us the LCM 8? What when multiplied by the denominator 8 will give us the LCM 8? Yes, boys and girls, 1. When you multiply 8 by 1, you will get 8. And whatever we do at the bottom, we do at the top. So the number at the top, which is called the numerator, we multiply that by 1 also. So in this case, the fraction is still 2/8. So let's move to the next fraction. We have to convert 3/4 also to a like fraction. So let's look at the denominator. The denominator in that fraction is 4. What multiplied by 4 will give the LCM 8? What multiplied by 4 will give the LCM 8? 2 times 4 equals 8. So 4, the denominator, multiplied by 2 will give us 8. Remember, what we do at the bottom, we also do it at the top. So 3 times 2 equals 6. Why did we multiply 3 times 2? We multiplied 3 times 2 because 3 is the numerator in the fraction. It's the number at the top. So the fraction is 6/8. So let's compare these two like fractions that we have. So the fractions that we made like are 2/8 and 6/8. Now we learned that when the denominators are alike, we look at the numerator to decide which fraction is greater. The fraction with the greater numerator becomes the greater fraction. So let's look at it carefully. 2/8 and 6/8. We have 2 and 6 as the numerators. So which fraction would be the largest one? The largest fraction would be 6/8. As we would say, the alligator mouth will open to the bigger fraction. So now we have to compare our original fractions. And our original fractions were 2/8 and 3/4. Now the 2/8 remained, and the equivalent fraction for 3/4 is 6/8. So your answer should read 2/8 is less than 3/4. Boys and girls, I hope you understood the explanation. So now I'm going to give you a chance to do one on your own. Compare the fraction below using more than or less than. 3/4 blank 2/5. Is 3/4 greater than 2/5, or is 3/4 less than 2/5? Now, boys and girls, remember what the rule said. The rule said to compare fractions with unlike denominators, we must first find the LCM of the denominator. We make the fractions like fractions, we compare the like fractions, and then we compare the original fractions. So keeping that at the back of your head, I want you to do this one on your own. boys and girls, you should be finished by now. Let's see what you have. So what are the denominators in the fraction? The denominators are 4 and 5. So the first thing you should have done is to list the multiples of 4 and 5. So boys and girls, let's list the multiples of 4 and 5. The multiples of 4 are 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, and 24. Let's list the multiples of 5. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. Good. So we have all our multiples there. Now, what are the common multiples you see? What are the common multiples you see that are multiples of 4 and multiples of 5 also? In this case, we only have 20. So boys and girls, the LCM of 4 and 5 is 20. Now let's continue. The next step says that we have to make the fractions like. So we have to look at the denominators again and see what we can multiply them by to get the LCM 20. And of course, we know that what we do at the bottom, we must also do at the top. So the first fraction, 3/4. The denominator is 4. What must be multiplied by 4 to get 20, boys and girls? Yes, of course, 5. 4 times 5 will give us 20. So we multiply the denominator by 5. So we have to multiply the numerator by 5. 3 5s, 15. So the new fraction is 15 over 20. Let's go to 2/5. What is the denominator in that fraction? Yes, 5 is the denominator. What must we multiply 5 by to get 20? Yes, boys and girls, 4. 5 times 4 will give us 20. And we know the rule says that what we do at the bottom, we must also do at the top. So the numerator is 2. So when we multiply 2 by 4, we will get 8. So the new fraction is 8 over 20. So let's compare them. So boys and girls, we learned that when comparing fractions with the same denominator, we look at the numerators. And the fraction with the greater numerator is the larger fraction. So we have 15 over 20 and 8 over 20. Which numerator is greater? Let's identify the numerators. The numerators are 15 and 8. So boys and girls, 15 is greater than 8. So the fraction 15 over 20 is greater than 8 over 20. So let's compare the original fractions now. 15 over 20 is equivalent to 3/4. Boys and girls, do you know that 3/4 also has another name? Yes, it's 3/4. So 3/4 is greater than 2/5. So you know that we couldn't end this lesson without having the problem of the day. So the problem of the day, boys and girls, Sam had a cake. I love cake. I love sponge cake. He gave 3/10 to his sister and 2/5 to his cousin. Who got the bigger piece of cake? Sam had a cake. He gave 3/10 to his sister and 2/5 to his cousin. Who got the bigger piece of cake? Take a minute and get that done. Good. So, his cousin got the bigger piece of cake, which is 2/5. 2/5 is greater than 3/10. You may wonder why. When we are comparing fractions with unlike denominators, we find the LCM, make the two fractions like, then compare their numerators. I hope you would have done that, boys and girls. You are excellent problem solvers. So this has brought us to the end of our class for today. Friends, I hope that you would have learned quite a lot today and that you will also promise to put what you would have learned into practice. Continue to stay safe and healthy. Bye, boys and girls. See you next time.